Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gary Summers, and welcome to Mind, Body, Soul. My next guest has a Bachelor of Science degree from Memorial University and master's degrees in both developmental and applied social psychology. She spent time working in the pharmaceutical field as well as mental health and addictions before she decided to pursue a career in health coaching. This decision came after her own health scare led her down the path of holistic health and healing. She is now a certified health coach with a passion for plant-based living, disease prevention, and essential oils. She loves helping people make positive lifestyle changes that include healthy eating, stress reduction, and removing toxicity from our bodies and our environment with the help of essential oils. I met Gina several months ago, and my wife and I purchased a starter kit and started diffusing and using essential oils. I had trouble drinking water, which I guess a lot of people do, and I found that just adding a couple of drops of lemon to water really made a big difference. And we now have 4 diffusers in our home, and our house smells like a spa. So welcome, Gina.
Thank you for having me.
So our topic today is detoxing your home. What exactly do you mean by detoxing your home?
So most people are familiar with the word detox, right? And when we think of detox, we think of detoxing our bodies. So most of us, or a lot of us, participate in regular cleanse protocols with the goal of removing things like heavy metals and other toxins that can accumulate in our systems. And I mean, that's a great idea because of the environment we now live in. We're really bombarded with toxins from our food, body products, cleaners, and so much so that our bodies really can't keep up anymore. So the body is not able to remove these things naturally like it could many years ago when we didn't have all of these things in our environment because it's just too much. It's overload. So people often do a cleanse, say a 10-day cleanse, 30-day cleanse or whatever, and drink lots of green juice and water and restrict certain foods and things like that. And they'll do that and then think, okay, I'm good now for another 6 months or a year or whatever. But in reality, detox is something we need to think about every day. And as a health coach, people often ask me how often I detox. And that's my answer. It's every day. And that doesn't mean I'm doing the restriction and green juice, every single day. But every day I'm trying to see what else I can remove from my environment that might be toxic to me, my family, and my cat. So I have to look after pets as well. So that's where detoxing your home comes in. It's not just what we're putting into our body, it's what's around us in our home and in our environment.
Because some people may say, well, my home is fairly clean. What do you say to people who say, well, yeah, so what?
Yeah, who cares? Yeah, I get that. And like we said, some people don't want to know, right? So I'd like to read you just a few statistics, if I could, that might be eye-opening. So since the 40s, there have been about 100,000 different chemicals that have been introduced over the years, and more than about 10,000 ingredients are allowed just for use in personal care products. And the average woman wears about over 500 of them every single day, which is kind of scary. So that's according to a 2009 British study that looked at the routines of over 2,000 women. So there's sometimes, not always, research on one chemical and what it can do, but there's no research around what the interaction of 500 different chemicals slathered on our bodies every single day. There's no study showing the impact of that. And it's like we're really walking chemical experiments.
So I think perfume, but you're going elsewhere. Could be deodorant, could be body lotions.
Everything.
Facial cleansers.
Yep.
Soap, shampoo.
Yep.
Everything.
Toothpaste, the whole works. Yeah, we don't think about all of these things are adding just one more thing. And some people will say, well, it's only a small amount in this one thing. But if you're using that every single day, like our deodorant, right? That's a big one. Every single day for all of our lives, we're adding that on in addition to everything else. So all those chemicals are being absorbed into the bloodstream and having an impact on our bodies.
Is there any research as to some of the illnesses that these toxic chemicals can cause?
Yeah, so a lot of them are endocrine disruptors, skin irritants. A lot of them are known to cause reproductive abnormalities. And people just have nagging conditions, coughs, right, rashes, things like that. And nobody thinks about the fact that maybe it's my cleanser, maybe it's my makeup or something like that. People tend not to make that link I do have other stats I
Okay,
can
sure,
read
absolutely.
to
Yes,
you.
go right ahead.
Yeah, just to give you a bigger picture. So this is a big one that's an eye-opener. So on a typical cleaning day in a typical Canadian home, levels of chemicals in the indoor air can be hundreds, even thousands of times higher than the outdoor air in the most polluted of cities.
Is that because of the cleaning agents we're using in our house?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So it's pretty scary, right?
It
if
is.
you
It
think
is
about
very
that.
scary,
Because
yeah.
a lot of people say, no, I clean my house, right? It's super clean in here, but not if you're using toxic cleaners. It's not clean. And in fact, the indoor air pollution levels on a cleaning day like that would be high enough to trigger an inspection by health and safety authorities in any workplace settings. So that's from the nature of things.
And Gina, people have been using these products for years. You know, you see your parents, your mother, your father using them, and so it's just kind of we're indoctrinated into using these types of cleaning agents.
Exactly, and that's what we see as cleaning our home. And I have so many people who say, well, I've got the baby, so I have to clean the floor every single day, but they're using toxic cleaners. So all I can think is, okay, baby's crawling on the floor, and pets as well, and they're eating it. They're ingesting it. So, and maybe I've read too much over the years, but I just see all these toxic cleaners, and I don't understand how you would clean your house with chemicals.
So Gina, I guess the first question is where do we start? Do we take all the chemicals, the bottles and everything and just toss them?
One at a time.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like household cleaners contain a lot of toxic chemicals. They can cause short-term and long-term health problems. And the other thing people don't consider, because they're doing this for their kids, but children are more vulnerable to what's in the air, right? So they're more vulnerable to chemical exposure during developmental stages. So you ask, what could it interfere with? A lot of these chemicals can interfere with their neurological, endocrine, and immune systems. And because, like I said, they're eating it, drinking it, and breathing it. So younger children also have higher respiratory rates than adults. So they're absorbing more air contaminants per unit of weight, say, than the adults. So it's a heavier dose on them and pets as well. Another thing to consider or think about for those people who say it's not a big deal, European Union has banned over 1,300 chemicals from their cosmetics. And this is just talking cosmetics. We're not even really talking about food today, which is another one. So they've banned those from cosmetics that are known or suspected to cause cancer, genetic mutations, reproductive harm, or birth defects. In comparison, the U.S. FDA has only banned or restricted 11 chemicals.
And we tend to get a lot of products from the United States, don't we?
We do, right? We do. We order them online. Now, Health Canada is a bit better. Health Canada has banned or restricted over 500 chemical ingredients for use in cosmetic products. So a little bit better, but you have to do your homework, right? So in European Union, law requires pre-market safety assessments of cosmetics. That's not required in US and Canada. So a lot of people will say, oh, well, it wouldn't be on the shelf.
We hear that all the time, don't we?
No, that's not the case at all. So 80% of the ingredients used in our personal care products have never been tested for safety, which is really scary. And personal care products is probably one of the least regulated industries in the U.S. and Canada.
I never think about, the tooth whitening toothpaste that I buy or the shampoo that you use, and you think that, well, what could be wrong with something like that? But apparently there is.
There is. And I'm not meaning to scare the life out of you.
But, maybe we should be scared.
Yeah,
really?
I think people need to be aware that this is in the products. And, the FDA or Health Canada, they're not monitoring these things. So we have to do our own homework.
So Gina, can you talk to us about living chemical-free, getting rid of all those chemicals that are in our home? Because you're living proof that it can work, correct?
Yeah, and I don't even know, as much as I'm aware of in
Right.
my own home. And that's one thing I like to tell people. We can only control what's in our own environment, in our own house. Once we walk out the front door, we can't control what restaurants are cooking on, whether the food's organic, and what's in the air. We can't control those things. But, it's empowering to know that what is in your own home can have a big impact. We spend a lot of time there, right? So as much as I can be, I haven't purchased chemical cleaners in years. I just use simple things that I'll discuss. And I think my house is clean. You've been in my house, Gary.
Yes, I have. It smells like a spa.
Because most times, especially on cleaning day, your house smells like cleaners, like disinfectant, and I think it would be much nicer to have it smell like a spa.
That's the thing.
Clean,
That's
right?
what we did. I mean, I remember, opening the shower door, hold your breath, right?
Mm-hmm.
Spray the toxic, whatever it is you're spraying, slam the door and run out of the bathroom.
That can't be good.
No.
It's absolutely not good, right? It can affect our respiratory systems, and especially for kids and pets. So, if you want to know where to start with something like this.
Absolutely.
So it can be overwhelming, especially when you read all of these statistics. And sometimes I immerse myself even too much, and I got to step away because, I want to control everything, and you just can't. So it can be overwhelming. But I just tell people, just one thing at a time. And that's what I did. I didn't throw out everything in my house all at once. As I learned more, or as I ran out of a product, I just didn't replace it. I just used what I had in my home. What I would love for your listeners to maybe start with, if they want to know, okay, what things can I remove first? I would start with removing heavily scented candles, plug-ins, those smelly plug-ins, smelly room sprays, perfumes, and strong-smelling laundry detergents.
So Gina, those few things that you just talked about, they're pretty easy. They're really doable. You just have to decide that you want to live chemical free.
Yeah, so these things they're easy to change, right? So they're easy to take out of your home. And I realize, a lot of people spend a lot of money on these things. But it's something to start with because we're breathing these things into our lungs, eating pesticides on our food and laundry detergent. I mean, as long as we're wearing clothes, it's in contact with your skin. And there's chemicals in that laundry detergent that makes the smell last for 6 months. And I have 2 teenage girls, and they have friends come over, and there's times I can walk in my front door and I know who's there before I've seen them because I can smell their laundry detergent. It's so strong. Yeah.
So Gina, we now know what not to do. So we need to start talking about alternatives and how we can make our home much more livable and healthier.
Well, that's where to start. Before we get into what we use instead, do you want me to identify some things that people can look for?
Absolutely, yes.
In a few things. And just to give you a story, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and she was talking about her daughter's cough and the weird rash that she had. And through the conversation, I realized that she was using a lot of these things. And so I suggested, why don't you take those out and just see what happens. And I bumped into her about a week later, and she was actually upset when we spoke because I asked her, how are things? How is she doing? And she said when she took all those things out of her home, the cough and the rash went away. And she was upset because, feeling as a mom that she had caused it. But, most people are not aware that there are harmful toxins in these things, and they do impact our health. And a lot of people don't make that connection. And so many times people will end up getting medications that they don't need, or people have worse symptoms than just respiratory and a rash. People have way worse health problems, and nobody makes that connection. And sometimes just removing them, you can avoid medications or even a treatment that you don't need.
Your daughter, who was on a puffer, you didn't have the puffer, and her symptoms went away.
Yeah, I love my essential oils. So she had come down with a chest cold, and she just, whenever she gets sick, it's always heavy on her chest. And she came out and said, Mommy, I really feel like I need my puffers. And at that point, she hadn't been using them for a while. She had outgrown them. So I didn't have anything. If I did, it was expired. So I was fairly new at that time to essential oils. And I gave her one of my blends called Breathe. And she rubbed it on her chest. And within minutes, she was fine. So now I'm good now. And she just used that intermittently for a few days. And, it saved me a trip to the doctor, the pharmacist, a month-long course of steroids, which I had done many, many times in the past. And, probably would have done again. If the Breathe didn't work, I would have gone to the doctor, of course.
But it did work.
It did work. And she was fine. I mean, there's so many different chemicals that people, I think, should be aware of. Before I get into that, I wanted to mention greenwashing. So a lot of people, in their efforts to be greener, I suppose, in their home, they'll choose products that look like they're organic or cleaner in some way, but you have to be aware of something called greenwashing. So companies will try to fool you, basically. So, and a lot of time it's easily detectable. Sometimes just the bottle will be green, right, to make you think it's cleaner. Or the writing on the bottle will be green and, lots of leaves and flowers. Just things to make your mind think that it's a cleaner product. Or a play on words. So the word natural, right? You see everywhere.
Yeah.
All natural. It's not a regulated word. It's not a regulated term. Even organic is not a regulated term. So a lot of people will put a play on words. Like there's a brand of shampoo, it's called Organics, but it's spelled with an X on the end.
Right.
So it's not spelled correctly, right? So it just makes you believe they're putting a play on the term organic, but it's not an organic product, right? So just to be aware, that's something called greenwashing. So you have to do your homework. So there's a few chemicals I listed here. I mean, really it's just scratching the surface, but something you can be aware of. So there's parabens, fragrance, phthalates, sodium lauryl sulfate. Parabens and sodium lauryl sulfate.
My wife won't buy anything with parabens.
Oh, good.
In it.
Good. So that's a great start. And parabens are usually listed on the ingredients and often preceded by methyl, ethyl, butyl, or propyl parabens. So they're easy to spot. It's a preservative. It's a known skin irritant, endocrine disruptor. Parabens have been found in biopsy tissue from breast cancer tumors. So it's good that she's avoiding that. SLS, the sodium lauryl sulfate, and sodium laureth sulfate, SLES. In a similar way, you see these a lot in shampoos or advertising that it's not in the product, right? So they like to advertise that if it's not there. And the SLS, that began as an industrial degreaser, right? So I guess I figure if it cleans the grease off your garage floor really well, it must clean our hair really well too. So, and the other one that I would love for people to be aware of is fragrance, because it's in everything. But just the word fragrance can really represent an unidentified mixture of up to 3,000 different chemicals. And companies are not required to disclose what's in that term fragrance because it's considered trade secret. So it's a loophole, really, where they can hide things. So you had to be careful of that. So unless you trust the company, right? Unless the company is completely transparent and will share what's in fragrance, then it generally gets a bad rating from people who look at these things, right? Because if it just seems like they have something to hide. And what's normally in there, if they're not sharing what's in it, is something called phthalates. And phthalates are found in soft plastics, like your shower curtain, shampoo, air fresheners, nail polish, deodorant, a lot of different things.
Is there an alternative to your shower curtain?
I don't know if I've ever seen one that says phthalate free. But yeah, so it's known for causing reproductive abnormalities. It's actually banned in the European Union and also in definitely for children's toys, because it's a plasticizer. It's in children's toys, and California, I believe. So the thing with phthalates is you won't see it listed because they hide it under fragrance.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's not something you will generally see, but that's why you need to be more careful about the fragrance and what you're using. Another one I thought I'd mention is talc, because we're all familiar with baby powder. I mean, we all grew up probably using the Johnson's baby powder.
There was a big scare with that too, wasn't there?
Exactly, and shower to shower, things like that. So interestingly, in July of this year, a jury in Missouri ordered Johnson & Johnson to pay $4.69 billion to 22 women who were able to prove that the talc powder caused their ovarian cancer. And they have about 9,000 pending lawsuits coming at them right now.
So Gina, we talked about all the chemicals that we need to remove from our homes. So what do we replace them with?
Yeah, you've thrown everything out, and where to start. So a lot of these things we have in our home already. So must-have basics: baking soda, white vinegar, Castile soap, salt, and essential oils. Also olive oil for polishing. That's pretty much what I use in my home. The baking soda is great for eliminating odors and, for scouring, as is the salt. Vinegar is a natural antifungal and has antibacterial properties. Cuts grease. It does the job for everything that I need. Essential oils are naturally antibacterial. They're antimicrobial. They're antifungal. They're antiviral. All without any tinkering, and just the way Mother Nature made them.
I think some people might think that it's a lot of work. It's so easy to just go to the shelf on the supermarket, take a cleaner, and it's there.
Yeah.
But it's pretty easy to use these things you have in your home.
Well, I brought with me, you can see, of course, on radio, but this is a 500 ml spray bottle. Mm-hmm. I clean my whole house top to bottom with this. And so it's about 2/3 water and a third vinegar, and 20 drops of my favorite essential oil. So I love to use lemon, lavender, orange, eucalyptus.
So Gina, why add essential oils?
Also antibacterial properties.
Okay.
Yeah. So something like tea tree is a great antifungal. It's great for mold removal. Lemon, if you ever have, you know how kids like to stick things on windows and it leaves that gunky mess on your windows and you can't get it off, right? So just a little bit of lemon essential oil on your finger and just give it a little rub and it disappears instantly. So you don't need any of the toxic Gooby Gone or anything like that. So to me, it's gotten much easier. So I used to have a whole bunch of bottles under the sink, and now I just have one that I use for everything. And people are probably thinking, okay, what about the toilet? So, I mean, the same thing, really. So you could do a little chemical experiment. You just dump in some vinegar. I mean, not just buy the white vinegar. You can buy a pack. You can use that for everything. So just straight up, you can pour that into your toilet and some baking soda. It makes a little, chemical experiment. It'll fizz up. Drop a few essential oils in there for some further antibacterial disinfectant properties and swirl away and it's clean.
For those listeners who have not gotten into essential oils, some of the things that may come to mind is purity, cost. So can you talk a little bit about that, Gina?
So the few things to be aware of if you are going to start using them. So I always emphasize that quality matters when it comes to essential oils because you see them everywhere. So you have to be careful. I like to use doTERRA. It's the only one I trust. And the main reason being is because they do third-party testing. So I tell people, whatever you use, just make sure the oils are third-party, independently tested for purity. And that's really the only way to know that they're actually pure because it's not a regulated industry. So they can write 100% pure essential oils on the bottle. It's really meaningless because it's not regulated. So you have to do your homework when it comes to essential oils. So that's why I trust doTERRA for the third-party testing, and you can see the results. So there's a site called Source to You, and you can see all of those independent third-party testing results yourself. And then you know it's a pure product that you're using, because otherwise they could be diluted. They could be nothing but synthetic perfumes, really, which is defeating the purpose, right, of what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
That's adding in more chemicals, not pushing them out of your home. So quality matters, and it's cost effective. And as I mentioned, I haven't purchased a cleaner in years. Essential oils are also inexpensive because when they're pure, you just need a few drops, and they go a long, long way. They last forever.
And that's true because when we use diffusers, and we use them every day, I can tell we'll usually put only 2 or 3 drops in a diffuser, so you don't need a lot.
Absolutely, and as long as it's a pure oil and they're used properly, they're safer. They're very effective. They're cost effective. You'll save a ton, and they're also therapeutic. So while you're cleaning your home, essential oils are often great mood enhancers. They can be calming or relaxing, or they can be energizing, depending on when you choose. So you can be happy as you're cleaning.
So Gina, for people who are listening and they wanted to start doing their own research, what would you recommend? Where would they go?
So a couple of resources I like if people are wanting to, or as they're listening, going, oh my gosh, what about my skin cream, my favorite moisturizer? A couple of sites you can look at. One is called Skin Deep Cosmetics Database by Environmental Working Group, so ewg.org, Skin Deep, and you can actually enter in your cosmetics of choice, and it'll give you a rating from 1 to 10.
Wow.
With 1 being the cleanest, 10 being, it's toxic. Don't use it on your skin. It also comes in an app called Healthy Living, and there's another app called Think Dirty, Shop Clean. Another book I love is this one called There's Lead in Your Lipstick. So if people want to know about cosmetics by Gillian Deacon, fantastic resource. And if people want to look at DIYs, and I got to add, I am not a DIY person. I'm not a crafty person, but these things are just so easy, right? Like my cleaner I mentioned, I mean, that takes seconds to put together. I make my own skin serums, and it literally takes less than a minute to put together. And they can go to doTERRA.com or Google doTERRA blog, and you'll find tons of different recipes and cleaners you can use.
So Gina, thanks very much for coming. You've been a wealth of information as always. If people wanted to start the detoxing process, how would they get in touch with you?
You can find me on Facebook, Gina Rideout Health Coaching, or Gina Rideout Essential Oils. I'm also on Instagram, or you can email me at gina@ginarideout.com.
A takeaway for our listeners.
What I would love for your listeners to take away from all this is that you have to be your own health advocate. and you do have some control over what's in your own home. And also, you vote with your dollars. So as we mentioned, a lot of people think that, these products are okay because otherwise they wouldn't be on the shelf. It's not the case. You vote with your dollars every time you purchase a product that is not safe, and you're telling that corporation that you're okay with it every time you buy it. So only until you stop buying the product will they make change and give consumers what they want. When you hit them in the pocketbook, then they'll go, okay,
it's time to do something.
It's time to do something. But as long as you keep buying it, they're not going to change it.
Thank you, Gina, for taking the time to come in and talk to our listeners about essential oils and detoxing your home, and hopefully we'll get you back again sometime in the future. That's it for this week, everybody. Back again next week with another interesting guest.